days yesterday. Day 29 of Diary of a Multifaceted Mama. This is Jetta. Listen, y'all. The whole purpose of this vlog series is to be real. There's so much information overload out there and so much presented that's just either fabricated or exaggerated or just not real, right? And so the purpose of this vlog series is just to be real about life, real about all the different facets of our experience, real about motherhood, real about entrepreneurship, real about business ownership, real about being a therapist or a professional, real about what it's like to be a leader while also running a household and being in a marriage and trying to have successful relationships that feel good and taking care of yourself, right? Like it's all of those things and just being real about that. So, welcome to our morning this morning where we are just being real. Bags under the eyes, baby not sleeping, baby not sleeping. No, little one not sleeping today. She had some shots at the doctor's, and so she was not pleased and she has not slept well, right? You say hi. So typically my morning time I set aside for myself, and now she's barely 6 months, right? So I'm barely 6 months postpartum and she still nurses exclusively. So there is the postpartum and motherhood component and breastfeeding component and all that stuff to my days. Um, and so my morning routine is, of course, not exactly the same now as it was before I had her. But I do try to, and I set the intention to each morning have time for myself. Sometimes that time for myself means hitting stop on the alarm and letting myself sleep a little bit more. Sometimes that time for myself means getting up, at 4 a.m. or at 5 a.m., depending, and then really just enjoying what it is that I feel called to enjoy, whether it's meditation or like a light workout or petting the dog. Or looking out one of our windows at the gorgeous scenery as the sun rises. Oh my gosh, that's really beautiful. Um, or maybe it's writing, or maybe it's reading, or whatever I feel inspired to do to take care of myself and help really prepave my day in a way that is meaningful and intentional. And oftentimes it's a combination of all of the above. But this morning, mommy's me time has has a baby Jetta in it. And that's not necessarily uncommon because she's still a baby, right? And I think if we're just real about how life has ebbs and flows to it, then it releases the pressure of like doing it wrong. So there's a lot of talk, especially in the coaching space, if you're in the coaching space, but in the self-development space sometimes too, like generally speaking, to have like a strict morning routine. And while um, a very firm structure is very helpful when you are needing a reset in your life. Um, Once you have the foundation of that in place, it is not necessary to be very rigid, very strict, very, very structured, right? It's helpful to have a structure, but the structure is like an outline, right? It's like the boundaries, it's like the container. And then what you choose to put in it, you have some flexibility with. And so that's how I treat my morning time when I really needed a reset in my life. So this was years ago before I even wrote the book, The Reset. Um, I was much more structured with my morning routine. And I needed that at that time. But at this point, I have a very strong foundation for time for myself, whether it's in the morning or otherwise. And so I don't need to be as stringent or as structured as I was when I was building that foundation. Think about it just like when we were in school, right? You need to have the foundations of mathematics, the foundations of sciences before you can really build up into the more creative ways of viewing them, of understanding them, of creating solutions within them, or solving problems with them. So you have to start at the foundational level, and the foundational level is like the basics that need to be understood, those foundational building blocks, and there's a structure to that. So it's very much like that when you have any kind of change in human behavior or in your schedule, or if you're just generally needing a reset in some kind of significant way, right? But I don't need to be super rigid. I don't need to be super structured. I don't need to be super stringent. So I don't need to be so hard on myself, right? And the funny thing is that even when you're needing or craving more of that structure, that more stringent structure, if you're really hard on yourself, it actually becomes counterproductive. So either way, you don't need to be really hard on yourself, okay? Because if you're really hard on yourself, I learned this the hard way, but also the research supports it. If you're really hard on yourself, it actually creates more stress and duress in your brain and your body and your nervous system, which makes it harder for us to be able to relax. For the parts of our brain that are creative, that are solution oriented in a more confident and calm sense rather than like a rigid reactive sense, it makes it easier for those parts of our brain when we're not as stressed to be able to function in a more optimal way. Are you saying hi? Hi. I know you're tired. It's okay to rest. It's okay to rest. Yes. It's okay to rest. So this morning, in my structure of my morning time, I'm going to go with the ebbs and flows of life, of motherhood, of what it means to be human in this day and age. And I'm just going to be mindful in it. I'm going to enjoy this stage because I'll tell you what, my oldest is 13. And I remember when she was this little, and gosh, like brings tears to my eyes. Time is not something that we can control. So when we think about balance, you see, definitely makes me emotional thinking about how my kids are growing up. Such a bittersweet thing, right? But when we think about balance, balancing life as a mom, as a business owner, or as a parent, if you're a father or a grandparent, balancing life and all the different pieces of it that you really value, it's not about the balancing act, that juggling the proverbial balls in the air or holding all of the plates that are so fragile that you better watch out and hold them tight or they're going to drop, right? It's not about a balancing act. That's not what balance is. We need to reframe balance and better understand it in the context of nature, which is what we're a part of. Nature isn't trying to hold all of these things in one place all of the time and keep it steady. No, nature is ebbing and flowing constantly. Constantly. The seasons, the flowers, the animals. There's the birth, there's the growing, there's the blossoming. Right? There's the quiet time in the winter or the death of what is just done in the winter. And then there's a rebirth or a regrowing or a reblossoming or an evolution of types, right? As the seasons, as time presses on. That's balance in nature. There's an ebb and there's a flow. And if we think about balance in that way, that is what I have found to be effective. That is what I have found to be most helpful. And that balance calls for intention. It doesn't call for juggling everything all at one time, controlling it all. It calls for intention. It calls for us to say, all right, I don't have control of it all. So let me just focus on what I can focus on right now and enjoy this season that I'm in and go with the ebbs and flows that come. Ebb and flow as things ebb and flow, right? Like that's real balance. That's nature's balance. That's the balance that helps us feel more successful, more satisfied. Are you saying hi, hi, hi? Oh, look at the laughs. Look at the smiles. Hi, hi, hi. So that's what I'm basking in this morning, reflecting on this morning, is just enjoying balance. Allowing this to be a part of my balance, not pushing against it, not making it wrong because it's not how it quote unquote should be, but letting my morning feel balanced here in the moment because I'm appreciating what is. I'm not focusing on how things should be different or how she should be sleeping or how this should be or that should be or I should be, or I'm in it and I'm choosing to find peace in it, joy in it, just being intentional about where I focus. That's not what we're taught to do, is it? No, we're supposed to be worried about everything because care and concerned are so conflated. Oh, you must not care if you're not concerned, if you're not worried, if you're not working hard, if you're not tired or stressed, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Or if you aren't controlling everything, then what are you really doing? I call BS on that. Recipe for burnout. Just look at our stats. So I wish balance for you. I wish balance for our kids and do everything I can to demonstrate that for them and what that looks like, how that can feel, and that it's not cookie cutter, and that we all can do it in different ways, and that's okay. Right, Jetta Gray? You saying bye? Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Next time I join you, we're going to be on day 30 of the vlog series. I can't wait. Bye, everyone.